next session is from Aadhaar to Agentic AI, Reclaiming Technology as a Public Good, presented by Emdee Digitronics. Can we please pull up the screen quickly? All right. So can I request Mr. Moitra Das, Head of Growth, Emdee Digitronics, to please come up on the stage and take his seat while we play the AV.
Information technology was never just an industry. It is a responsibility to expand access, to lift capacity. For over 2 decades, Emdee has quietly powered the Digital India mission, turning policy into products and people into impact. Now transforming legacy enterprises with AI and emerging technologies. Agentic AI.
Hi, I'm Moitra Das, and I don't have a product to pitch. I will not be doing a sales pitch. I'll be more like sharing some ideas and values. You see, we have had a lot of wonderful sessions today on the theme of going beyond boundaries, but one thing I do want to address in my session is what boundaries? Because so far I've heard boundaries of scale, boundaries of innovation, boundaries of ambition, boundaries of growth. So it's about reaching higher up. My session is about how far low can we reach, which is boundaries of access. You see, I'm from Emdee Digitronics. You've probably never heard of us. But we brought 50 million citizens onto the national identity architectures like Aadhaar, electoral roll, and ration. We run the surveillance systems for West Bengal Police with CP+. We have 100 Aadhaar centers, and we have 800 smart classes, and we do software managing 2 million livestock and 20 million students and 7,000 rural roads construction. But you've probably never heard of us because we are probably the only company that has ever partnered with BCCI that has more employees than LinkedIn followers. Now, being in the shadow, quietly enabling Digital India, working on grassroots, ground level, last mile, unglamorous, unrecognized problems of Bharat has taught us certain values, has taught us certain perceptions of technology, principles about technology that I want to share today. Now, before I start, 2 caveats. Number 1, don't worry, this is not a workshop on communism or something. We are a profitable organization, we know how to balance both equities. But secondly, just because we are primarily a public sector company doesn't mean we have any opposition towards fancier tech players, right? Because as you saw, we ourselves have an enterprise AI player called Zuneco Labs. But we do believe that the values we have learned over 30 years working in the public sector, working in rural India, is something that sort of percolates to the enterprise level as well, which is something that wouldn't normally come up in a conclave like this, but I do want to bring it up. So what's the first principle? Own technology, don't let technology own you. You see, long back, we could not own knowledge because you could only access knowledge from encyclopedias, which were expensive. Which means that you couldn't really, everyone couldn't own knowledge. But then we had Google, and then we had Wikipedia, an open source platform, and suddenly you could own knowledge. But now we are back to renting, which is why I'm paying $3.99 to ChatGPT to access better knowledge. And I'm dependent on ChatGPT, which means I don't own it, it owns me. And we have seen this graph across enterprise software as well. 10 years back, you could outright own Microsoft Office license, right? You could buy Microsoft Office. Now you can't. Now you can only rent it per month. Your favorite ERP, the world's biggest ERP, rhymes with RAP. They also have a 2027 deadline where you have to migrate compulsorily from a ownership model to a rented model, otherwise they stop support. Now, because these businesses primarily function on subscription, subscription runs on retention, which means the longer you're with me, the longer you pay me. Retention runs on dependency. So the more dependent you are, the more longer you're going to stay with me, the longer you're going to pay me. And dependence creates dominance. So that's why suddenly you're calling your software vendor and they would be like, oh, we'll escalate the issue. Maybe in the next version of Grade we'll do this. One of our clients, they just asked for an API from their HRMS vendor. It's a 3,000 crore automobile company and the vendor just said, no, we will not give. And that is the state. In today's world, a vast majority of us are controlled by software. We do not control software. And here's the deal, right? What is the solution? Now, as at Zuneco Labs, we are part of a larger organization, which means we had the resources, the means to be a gold partner or a silver partner of any Western software. But we chose a different route, which is a route that is becoming more and more prevalent, relevant in the modern era, which is an open source route. Now we work with a framework called Frappe, but there's 100 open source frameworks, where when you build a software on open source frameworks, you own the code. You own the data, your data stays on your server. If you want, you can migrate out of it. If you want, you can expose any API. If you want, you can even change the vendor, because these open source frameworks are simple. They're not so complex. You operate within a bubble of overpriced consultants. And having worked like that, we have recognized that in this era, where AI has democratized knowledge and capability so much, where I think Redox showed a presentation where you can just code using prompts, which means when knowledge and capability is democratized in this era, if you're still tenants in software and not owners, and that's a problem, because technology was never created to create dependency, it was created to reduce dependencies. Which brings me to my second principle, which is access on paper is not the same as access in hand. And this is the concept that Amartya Sen won a Nobel Prize in. He said that if there are two persons, both own a bicycle, but only person A knows how to ride it, an economist will look at them and say that, oh, they're both equally well off. They have the equal amount of wealth, which is one bicycle each. But only person A is being able to get somewhere using it, because that is what access looks like. Person B just has a bicycle, and honestly, the bicycle today is enterprise software. Let's say you're building a supply chain management software. We go and pitch it to the promoter. We show him a demo, and they love it. So now we are talking to the head of supply chain, the head of inventory, the head of purchase, the head of logistics, and we make a very good software. They love it. We get paid. Everyone's happy. It's a success story on our website. But the one person we didn't talk to is the person in their warehouse who's doing the offloading and onloading at 2 a.m. Is the app actually making their life better? And it's a real story, because in our case, it wasn't making their life better. It was making it harder to navigate an app. So we had to change it. We had to remove all the input fields and interface and make it camera based, where he's just taking pictures of consignments being loaded, of trucks coming in, of challans, etc. But the thing is, that is not a kind of thinking that any sort of, in modern era, we do with software, because the buyers are not the users. You do not have the last mile people in the boardroom when you're giving the demo. And even about the demo, there's a industry in marketing called performance marketing, which is sort of like, if it works, I pay you. We don't have that in technology. So as long as the demo is nice, the product is nice, the promoter likes it, the CXOs like it, the product is good. It doesn't need last mile adoption. But that is what violates a very important principle of any driver of economy, not just technology, is that when you're creating something, you're creating not something dead, but something that will actually bring value to the people who are the least advantaged. For example, we were working with this company which does insurance in rural India. Now all their agents operate out of rural India, and the promoter wanted us to make a CRM. Now we had a full template of a CRM, we know how to make a CRM, we have a fancy pitch deck for a CRM. But all those agents work out of WhatsApp groups, they are very used to it. Now there are two options, I can impose on them, or what we did, create an AI agent that sits in those WhatsApp groups and create CRM workflows on top of it. That is how imposition looks like. Same with Tally. Most of the SME clients we work with are so dependent on Tally that we don't want to go and forcefully migrate them out into our software. We create an AI on top of Tally. And there's a very popular saying that if you take a very expensive European tractor and you give it to a villager in India, you have given him nothing, because he can't use it, he can't fuel it, he can't fix it, he can't run it. And that is something we really need to consider when we are working with technology. The third principle, lifting capacity, augmenting human capital rather than just replacing it. Now what does this look like? You see, most of the AI pitch decks these days, we talk about labor cost reduction, because it's a very simple metric to sort of go and talk about in a pitch. The reality is that, I'll go with the same bicycle analogy. A bicycle's point is not to replace the rider, is to help the rider go somewhere faster using the same legs. And that was the point of any innovation, which was augmenting our capabilities. But that is not the case anymore. Because for example, when we installed CCTVs across Bengal, we did not do it to replace traffic constables. We enabled them to look at 20 junctions at the same time. And the reality is that when you operate with the thought of, oh, I want to reduce labor costs, What's the max labor cost you can reduce? Let's say you spend 100 rupees. The max you can reduce is 100, you fire everyone. But the growth has no ceiling. You can do 1000x instead of just reducing the 100. And that is what more people did. In America, when ATMs came and the bank tellers who used to give cash, they went out of jobs, the biggest banks in America retrained them to become advisors of finance. IKEA, when they automated their customer care, repurposed their customer care executives to become home interior consultants. And that is how they augmented their capacity. Instead of just replacing humans to reduce labor costs to look cool in a board meeting. One of the work we did, right, with one of the clients whose purchase department was fully, we were trying to automate purchasing workflows. AI will do all the grunt work. AI is supposed to do the grunt work. AI will handle the purchase orders, the PIs, the RFQs, the comparison sheet. But now their purchase department has a better role. Now they're on vendor discovery in a supply dominated market. Similarly, we don't want to replace human input. For example, one venture capital we work with in Ahmedabad, now it would have been really cool on LinkedIn to post that we created an AI VC, but we didn't really, because all we did was we automated the boring work, the downloading all the pitch decks from all channels, reading the information, putting it into CRMs. What we did not want to automate is making investment decisions. Why? Because an AI would have never invested in a Zomato because it would look back and say that Food Panda failed. AI cannot read people, it can only read paper, and we do not want that. We want human capital sustained. And this is not an afterthought. Before Emdee sold a single product, our first thing we did in 1996 was create 5 computer training centers in colleges across Kolkata to lift human capacity. We believe in human capacity. Lastly, expanding access. Now you see that expanding access is a capacity where you build for the margin and not the median is a cool concept to say, but there's obviously more money to make if you're serving the metro cities, if you're serving the top 10% of the population. It takes way more time to derive a profit from an operation you're doing in, let's say, Northeast India, for example. And one of the most common applications of this is that most Western software have license cost, right? So per user you pay. What does this look like? Even the biggest companies, they have a HRMS software, but they wouldn't onboard their laborers from the manufacturing plant onto it. They will not onboard their field salesmen because they're like, okay, our corporate employees are on it. Suddenly the employees have become a cost center for software. Software was supposed to help you grow. Now software is taxing you for growth, which was never the case. That's why we work with open source software. Open source software doesn't sort of punish you for growing. It does not tax you for every additional employee. And throughout the time we have worked like this. We built, we built Bangla Shikha, which is the application that 97,000 primary schools in West Bengal runs on. But that is not, now public schools is where majority of the students are, but private schools is where the valuations are, which is why Byju's was a $22 billion company. And no one's ever heard of all the companies in India that run public schools which hold like 5 times the number of students. Because even with Byju's, they try to skim for profit, they are bankrupt. The company that is not, that is the leading edtech of our country, is the one that expanded access, PhysicsWala. And speaking of unicorns, Kolkata is one of the leading cities in our country. But how many unicorns have we produced? None. And being one of the primary cities of eastern part of India, being one of the main city of east and northeast, it is our responsibility to build for margins because East India is the most marginalized part of the country. And we have companies like Meesho and Sarvam which are becoming unicorns, and I think it is our responsibility to do that because 150 years ago when West Bengal went through its first Renaissance with Vidyasagar and Rajaram Mohan Roy, it was about expanding some form of access. Could be education, could be knowledge, could be political rights, could be any form of access, and that is what we need to bring back today. Because building technology is easy, but building technology for the last mile that people can actually use, that people can actually derive value from, and people don't need to get replaced by, but can augment their capacities with, that is hard. Making technology is not hard anymore. Making software is not hard anymore. But creating value using it is hard. And I hope, and I urge you guys to consider the other form of boundary that we need to go beyond, which is boundary of access and not just boundary of growth. And that is how we'll have a more prosperous state and nation. Thank you. But should I tell this?
No, I will. So Moitreo, I wish I was as erudite as you are at 23. Ladies and gentlemen, a 23-year-old guy presenting with so much of passion and knowledge and depth. All right, whom do I have here? To the honors. Okay. Can I have Mr. Joyanto Kumar Saha come up on the stage, please? Mr. Joyanto Kumar Saha is another passionate person running his own company, Softing Intelligent Solutions, built it from the scratch, hailing from Siliguri. So, two Bengali entrepreneurs on the stage doing IT and going beyond boundaries actually.